It was just after sunrise, the kind of Texas spring morning where the air feels clean, like it's been scrubbed by the night's cool breath. The pastures stretched out in a soft glow, that pale gold light you only catch for about 20 minutes before the sun climbs too high. Mist hung low over the pond, curling like a ghost too lazy to move on, its edges shimmering where the first rays hit. The horses, their coats gleaming like polished leather, trotted along the fence line, their hooves kicking up little puffs of dust, their nostrils steaming in the crisp dawn. I stood there, coffee mug warm in one hand, the bitter aroma mixing with the sweet tang of dew-soaked grass. A flake of hay was tucked under my arm, its weight familiar, grounding. My only plan was to check the south gate before breakfast, a ritual as old as the ranch itself. Days like this, you can almost forget there's a world beyond the property lines, where people scheme and squabble. Almost. I just scattered feed into the trough, the grain pattering like soft rain, when my eyes caught something wrong. Propped against the front gate, wedged perfectly between the crossbars, was a big corrugated envelope, its edges crisp despite the morning damp. Bright red lettering blared, "Special HOA delivery." A phrase so out of place it was almost funny. My land sits a solid mile beyond their jurisdiction, out where the county road turns to gravel and the world feels like it belongs to you alone. The HOA had no business here, and yet, there it was, bold as a rattlesnake in a henhouse. Curiosity, that old troublemaker, tugged at me. I cracked the envelope open, the paper crinkling under my fingers. Inside was a glossy photo collage, the kind you'd see at a bridal expo, pushed by some overeager planner with too many ideas. My pond, my oak grove, my west pasture, all there, but not as I knew them. In these pictures, white tents lined the water's edge, their canvas gleaming under imaginary lights. Floral arches sprouted in the fields, dripping with roses and ivy. Couples in fancy clothes smiled, champagne glasses glinting in their hands. Across the bottom, in curling script that looked like it took hours to perfect, it read, "Your land, the future of Lakeside Preserve." I tossed the envelope onto the passenger seat of my truck, the leather creaking as it landed. A word slipped out, one I'd picked up back in my sheriff's department days, the kind you don't say at Sunday supper. Karen Fitzgerald, the HOA's queen bee, had been circling for a while now. She'd rolled up twice last year in her spotless SUV, all pearls and perfume, her voice sweet as saccharin but sharp underneath. She talked about bringing people together, about the responsibility of property owners to contribute to her grand vision of community events. I'd told her, as politely as my patience allowed, that my responsibility was to my livestock, my family, and the land I'd worked my hands raw to keep. The only events on my property involved branding cattle, fixing fences, and the occasional coyote chase under a full moon. Her smile had tightened, but she'd nodded and driven off. I thought I'd made my point. Clearly, I hadn't. By mid-morning, the sun had burned off the mist, and the air carried that dry, dusty warmth that promised a long day. I was checking the cattle guard when I saw it. A freestanding wooden arch, the kind you'd find at an outdoor wedding, draped in silk ribbons and fake flowers that looked like they'd been ordered in bulk. Gold paint across the top spelled out, "Welcome to HOA Event Grounds." I stood there, coffee cooling in my hand, caught between annoyance and grudging respect. It takes a certain kind of nerve to trespass on a man's land just to plant a decoration. Whoever did it had worked under cover of darkness, because I'd been up late the night before, watching a thunderstorm roll in from the north, its lightning cracking the sky like a whip. That arch hadn't been there when I'd gone to bed. Then, as if to rub salt in the wound, I spotted a plastic storage bin just inside the fence, half hidden in the tall grass. Inside were two gaudy plastic swan ornaments, the kind that scream bad taste to anyone with eyes, and a tangled string of cheap LED fairy lights. A sticky note on top, written in neat cursive, read, "For your lake, let's make it festive." I laughed, a short, dry sound that didn't reach my chest. If they thought fake swans would intimidate me, they were barking up the wrong tree. I dealt with meth cookers who'd point a shotgun at you without blinking, their eyes wild with desperation. A plastic bird wasn't exactly fear material, but the fact they'd crept onto my land, even for these petty stunts, meant they'd crossed a line. This wasn't just a prank. It was a challenge. I decided to answer in kind. After lunch, the sun high and unrelenting, I backed my welding truck up to the arch, the engine rumbling like a warning. With a quick slice of the torch, I cut the posts loose at the base, the wood splintering with a satisfying crack. I dragged the whole thing 50 yards down the fence line, the ribbons flapping like surrender flags. Then I grabbed a sheet of plywood from the barn, slapped on some black paint, and scrawled in big block letters, "Private property. Swans will be shot." It was ridiculous, petty, and it made me feel damn good. I hammered it into place, the nails biting deep into the wood. That night, I called my buddy at the feed store in town, a guy who knew everyone and everything that moved through the county. I told him to keep an eye out for anyone buying bulk decorations or fake wildlife. He laughed, his voice crackling through the phone. "Sounds like you've got a stalker with a Bed Bath & Beyond gift card." I chuckled, but it didn't sit right. These weren't just harmless pranks. There was a shape to them, like the smell of rain before the clouds gather, a warning of something bigger coming. Saturday morning broke slow and quiet, the kind of morning where the world feels like it's holding its breath. I was out feeding the stock, the rhythmic clank of the feed bucket keeping time with my steps, when movement caught my eye at the far end of the driveway. Through the shimmer of heat rising off the gravel, 3 pickup trucks rolled in, bold as brass, like they owned the place. They were painted in matching white and blue stripes, with HOA patrol splashed across the sides in block letters. Yellow beacon lights spun on their roofs, the kind you'd see on a construction site, not a ranch. By the time I set my coffee down and walked to the porch, the doors were swinging open. 4 people stepped out, all in dark blue uniforms with shiny patches on their shoulders that looked like law enforcement badges until you read the fine print. Lakeside Preserve Safety Team. They even had utility belts with radios crackling made-up codes, like they were auditioning for a bad cop show. The one in front, a stocky guy clutching a clipboard, started waving his arms toward the barn, assigning positions like he was directing a SWAT team. A lanky kid with a digital camera began snapping photos of my horses, muttering about animal welfare compliance, as if he knew the first thing about livestock. 2 others marched straight to my storage shed, yanking at the latch like they had a warrant tucked in their back pockets. The 4th dropped an orange traffic cone in the middle of my driveway and set up a portable stop sign, like he was redirecting traffic on a highway. I walked down the porch steps slow, my boots crunching on the gravel, letting them feel the weight of my presence. "Can I help you folks?" I called, my voice calm but carrying the edge of a man who's had enough. Clipboard guy gave me a thin smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Sir, we're here to conduct a property inspection on behalf of the Homeowners Association. Our records indicate this land falls within our maintenance jurisdiction." I tilted my head, letting the silence stretch. "That's interesting," I said, "because my records say I'm 1.5 miles outside your jurisdiction, and the only maintenance this land needs is the kind I do myself." The lanky kid held up a sheet of paper like it was the winning card in a poker game. "We've got updated boundary maps," he said. "You might want to take a look." I took it, my fingers brushing the cheap printer paper. The base map was legit. I recognized the county's watermark, but someone had gone over it with a ruler and red pen, drawing new lines that swallowed my pond, my pasture, and a good chunk of my north woods. If this was their big play, it was about as subtle as a brick through a window. I handed it back without a word and reached for my phone. Clipboard guy's smile faltered as I punched in numbers. "Who are you calling?" he asked, his voice tighter now. "3 guesses," I said. The 911 dispatcher's voice came through, steady and professional. I gave my name, location, and a calm rundown. Unauthorized entry, possible forgery of county documents, attempted inspection without a warrant. Then I set the phone on speaker, flipped to video mode, and started circling them like I was filming a nature documentary. "Just so you're aware," I told them, "everything you do from here on out is recorded. Face shots, license plates, those fancy fake badges. Smile for the camera." The one by the shed muttered about this being internal HOA business. I cut him off. Buddy, the second you stepped past that fence, it stopped being internal and started being criminal. The dispatcher said a unit was 15 minutes out. I thanked her and kept filming, zooming in on their patches, their boots, the clipboards, every scrap of paper they held. The lanky kid lowered his camera and mumbled, "We're just trying to do our jobs." "No," I said. "You're trying to play cop on land you've got no claim to, and you're doing a bad job of it." They didn't leave, just stood there shifting from foot to foot, their radios crackling with static. Fine by me. Every extra minute was another frame of evidence. 15 minutes isn't long, unless you're watching strangers paw at your property like it's up for grabs at a yard sale. Their chatter dropped to nervous murmurs, their confidence leaking away with every passing second. Then I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. A pearl-white SUV eased into view, spotless as if it had just rolled off a showroom floor. I didn't need to see the vanity plate to know who it was. Karen Fitzgerald, Queen of Lakeside Preserve, in all her glory. The driver's window slid down, revealing her oversized sunglasses, lacquered hair, and a smile that could curdle milk. "Well," she called, her voice dripping with condescension. "This is quite the overreaction, Jackson. We could have handled this civilly." I crossed my arms. "Karen, your people walked onto my land without permission, waving fake maps. That's not civil. That's trespassing." She parked at an angle, blocking part of the driveway, and stepped out in designer wedges that wobbled on the gravel. She launched into a performance, projecting her voice like she was addressing an invisible crowd. "There's been a clerical error in the county records," she announced. "Your property, due to incorrect filings, now falls within the Lakeside Preserve perimeter. The patrol is simply verifying compliance." Before I could respond, a squad car rolled up, its lights flashing in the pale morning. 2 deputies stepped out, hands resting casually on their belts, eyes scanning the scene. Karen pivoted toward them like a stage actress hitting her mark. "Officers, I'm glad you're here. We have a small boundary dispute." I raised my battered leather binder, thick as a cinder block, stuffed with every scrap of paper proving this land was mine. "Before we waste taxpayer money," I said, "let's look at the facts." I spread out the notarized property deed, a fresh cadastral map stamped by the county last month, and the original surveyor's report from when I bought the place. Deputy Miller, a guy I'd worked with back in my sheriff's days, leaned over the documents. "These are current," he said after a moment. "They match what we have on file." Karen's smile tightened. She motioned for clipboard guy to hand over their map. The deputy took one glance, raised an eyebrow, and pointed out the obvious. The red boundary lines didn't match any official markings, and the scale legend was clumsily cropped. "Ma'am," Miller said evenly, "this isn't an official document. This is a county map someone's altered." I didn't let her respond. "It's a forgery," I said, my voice flat enough to make her head snap toward me. The deputies told the patrol to leave until this could be sorted legally. Karen huffed about seeking immediate clarification and marched back to her SUV, her crew muttering as they followed. Engines roared, gravel spat, and the circus rolled out, for now. For a couple of days, the ranch was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels too good to trust. I thought maybe Karen had gotten the message. Then, just before sunrise on Tuesday, I found the north pasture gate swinging wide open, 3 of my steers standing halfway down County Road 47, their tails swishing like they owned the asphalt. It took an hour of coaxing with a bucket of sweet feed to get them back, the whole time knowing that latch hadn't worked itself loose. The metal was too sturdy, the mechanism too tight. Someone had opened it, and I had a good guess who. Later that day, while I was hammering a loose post on the east fence, the sun beating down like a hammer, I caught a flash of movement in the treeline. Someone stood just beyond my property line, phone raised, filming me like I was some rare bird. I gave a big, exaggerated wave, the kind that says, "I see you, and you're not clever." They ducked behind a cedar, quick as a jackrabbit, and vanished. By Wednesday, the harassment had kicked into high gear. A county fire inspector knocked on my door after lunch, apologizing as he held up a printed complaint about uncontrolled brush pile burning. I walked him around, showed him the stone-ringed fire pit, clean and cold, and the seasonal burn permit tacked to the barn wall. He shook his head, his boots scuffing the dirt. "We get a lot of these ghost complaints from your HOA folks," he said. "Waste of everyone's time." That night, I'd had enough of reacting. I pulled the hard drive from my security DVR, the one I'd installed after a coyote got too bold a few years back, and hooked it to my laptop. The screen glowed as I scrubbed through 72 hours of footage from the perimeter cameras. There they were, caught on infrared at 2 a.m. Clipboard guy and lanky kid, sneaking along my fence line, flashlight beams slicing through the dark. They didn't cross the line this time, but they took photos of the fence posts, the barn in the distance, one of them even striking a ridiculous pose, clipboard under his arm, chin tilted like he was measuring the damn moon. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of the laptop fan mixing with the crickets outside. This wasn't just trespassing anymore. It was a plan, a production. I called my buddy Jake, who runs the feed and tax store in town and knows every face that passes through. "Put the word out," I told him. "If anyone from Lakeside Preserve buys anything that smells like security gear, cameras, lights, anything, let me know." Then I decided to hit back in a way Karen wouldn't see coming. I called the Texas Department of Public Safety's Private Security Bureau and asked if the HOA patrol had a valid license for guard services. 10 minutes later, the answer came back. Not only did they lack one, but running an unlicensed patrol was a misdemeanor in Texas. That was my ace. That afternoon, I typed up a formal complaint for the county prosecutor's office, attaching stills from my footage, copies of the fake maps, the patrol's license plates, and a timeline of every stunt they'd pulled. I didn't just want them to back off. I wanted a paper trail so thick they'd need a wheelbarrow to haul it. By the end of the day, I found another gift from my neighbors. A row of tiny plastic stakes hammered into the ground just inside my property line, each topped with a flag reading Future Picnic Area, HOA. I stared at them, the wind tugging at the little flags, and felt my blood heat. I went to the barn, grabbed an old plywood board, and painted in bold red letters, HOA Safari Park, entry $100, by appointment only. Then I called in a favor from a traveling petting zoo that owed me from a charity event years back. By morning, 2 camels were wandering behind the flags, chewing lazily on mesquite branches while I sipped coffee on the porch. By noon, someone had posted a photo of my safari to the local Facebook group. By dinner, there were memes, comments piling up like leaves in a storm. Karen was gonna hate it, and that was the whole damn point. Friday morning came in hot, the air heavy with that baked dust smell that tells you the day's gonna drag. I was at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a single photo, my barn, shot from near the creek bed, with the caption, "Your storage area will be assessed for community safety upgrades soon." No name, no signature. The creep factor had my boots on before the coffee was cold. I took the back path to the creek, the ground soft underfoot, and found fresh footprints in the mud. 2 sets, one larger, one smaller, both in cheap work boots, the kind sold in bulk at discount stores. I followed them to the fence line, where they ended at a freshly cut section of barbed wire, patched with twine so loose it fluttered in the breeze. Subtlety wasn't their strong suit. Back in the house, I dug out an old surveillance receiver from my sheriff's days, a beat-up black box that could pick up unsecured wireless feeds within a few hundred yards. HOA types love cheap Wi-Fi cameras, and I was betting Lakeside Preserve had their share. Sure enough, the scanner latched onto a half-dozen feeds from a network called LP Safety Team. One pointed at the road into their gated community, another at their clubhouse entrance, but 2 were aimed straight at my property. I clicked into the stored video archives and hit play. There they were, clipboard guy and lanky kid, staging their inspection days before they showed up. They were in the HOA clubhouse parking lot, rehearsing lines like actors in a low-budget play. Clipboard guy, in a fake serious voice, said, "Sir, we're here to ensure compliance with community guidelines." Lanky kid cracked up, nearly dropping his camera. Then, like a cherry on top, They joked about borrowing my horses as security deposits. I laughed, but it was the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. This was a production, and they were sloppy enough to leave the receipts. I clipped a few minutes of the footage, rehearsals, fake badges, the horse joke, and uploaded it to a throwaway Facebook account. I titled it Casting Call for Idiots of the Year and posted it to the local community group. Within an hour, the comments were on fire, people I barely knew tagging friends, tossing and laughing emojis, sharing it faster than I could track. By mid-afternoon, Jake called from the feed store, chuckling. "You're going viral, man. Karen's been in here twice today, once for birdseed, once to yell about malicious social media campaigns." I pictured her stomping around in those wedge heels, trying to look dignified while hauling 40-pound sacks of seed, and it damn near made my day. But I wasn't stopping at public humiliation. I packaged the camera feeds, screenshots of their network, and timestamps into a folder and drove it to the county prosecutor's office. The clerk raised her eyebrows as she clicked through. "You sure you want this in the public record?" she asked. "Oh, I'm sure," I said. "The more eyes, the better." When I got home, another surprise was waiting. A giant vinyl banner was zip-tied to the west pasture fence, bold letters proclaiming, "Future Lakeside Preserve Summer Festival, coming soon," with a stock photo of my pond lifted straight from a real estate site. I didn't tear it down. Instead, I grabbed a can of bright yellow spray paint and added my own sign underneath. "Festival canceled due to fraud charges. Refunds at the county jail." If they wanted to advertise, I'd give them the fine print. That night, I sat on the porch as the sky turned a bruised purple with sunset. Somewhere out there, Karen was plotting her next move. But I had her people on video, her fake patrol stripped bare, and the whole town watching. She thought she was running the show. I knew better. Barely past sunrise the next morning, my phone lit up with a call from Deputy Miller. His voice had that clipped, businesslike tone I remembered from our days in uniform. "Jackson, thought you'd want to know. We got a search warrant for the HOA offices. Prosecutor's orders. You free to stop by?" "Free?" I was halfway to my truck before he hung up. By the time I reached the Lakeside Preserve Complex, the parking lot was a sea of county cruisers, their light bars pulsing red and blue across the cream stucco walls. Residents in gym clothes and bathrobes clustered together, whispering like they were waiting for a reality show twist. The HOA office doors stood wide open, deputies streaming in and out with cardboard evidence boxes. I leaned against my truck's hood, watching as one carried out a desktop computer tangled in extension cords, another hauling a filing cabinet with brass handles polished by decades of nervous hands. Someone snapped photos of the interior. Map racks, stacks of glossy event brochures, a corkboard plastered with aerial shots of properties, including mine. Then came the real prize. A deputy emerged with an oversized tube of rolled maps. He popped the cap and slid them out on his cruiser's hood. Even from 20 feet away, I could see the red boundary lines snaking across my land like a drunk rattlesnake. They weren't even consistent. One map took half my pond, another swallowed it whole, plus a chunk of the Johnson's hayfield next door. A sticky note on top, in Karen's sharp block letters, read, "Drafts for Land Commission Pitch, confidential." I kept my mouth shut and my phone camera rolling. You don't interrupt when your enemy's doing your work for you. Inside, Miller gave me a quick tour like we were in a crime museum. "Here's your fake patrol roster," he said, pulling a binder from a desk drawer. It listed names, schedules, even a budget request for uniform enhancements. $500 for bulk order security patches. I flipped a page and found printed emails between Karen and her crew, instructions to gain access to my property, document water points, and create an incident report for boundary correction. The kicker was a spiral notebook labeled Event Revenue Projections. In black ink, they'd penciled out wedding rental fees for my pond, catering add-ons, even an optional horseback arrival package for brides. I couldn't decide if I was insulted or impressed. They'd priced my land like a resort catalog. Then, like a bad soap opera, Karen appeared in the doorway, her designer sunglasses failing to hide the panic in her eyes. "This is a misunderstanding," she announced, stepping inside as if she could wave it all away. These are just conceptual plans, ideas for community improvement. Miller didn't look up from the evidence box he was labeling. Ma'am, you might want to stop talking until your lawyer gets here. She ignored him and marched over to me. Jackson, you're making a spectacle of this. Do you really want your name tied to this circus? I smiled, no teeth. Karen, my name's already on the marquee. The difference is, I didn't forge the script. Her lawyer arrived, a pale, sweating man with a briefcase too heavy for him. Two deputies stepped forward. Karen Fitzgerald. One said, "You're under arrest for trespass, attempted land fraud, and forgery of county documents." The cuffs clicked shut with the finality of a deadbolt. Clipboard guy and lanky kid were pulled from a side office, looking like kids caught stealing candy. One tried to protest, saying they were just following orders. Miller cut him off. That's not a defense when the orders are illegal. As they were loaded into cruisers, some residents clutched their gym bags, trying not to stare. Others grinned openly. A guy in jogging shorts gave me a discreet thumbs up. I climbed back into my truck, glancing at the HOA sign out front. Big, polished, self-important. It looked like the front for a bad magic trick, and the curtain had been yanked back for the whole town to see. The courthouse was nothing fancy. 3 floors of beige brick, a lobby smelling of coffee and floor wax. But that Monday morning, it was a spectacle. Word of Karen's arrest had spread like wildfire, and locals packed the gallery like it was a matinee. Old ranchers in weathered hats, moms with iced coffees, even the high school shop teacher grinning in the back row like he'd brought popcorn. I sat at the plaintiff's table with my attorney, Dana Fields, a sharp-eyed woman whose voice could make a man confess to stealing his own lunch. Across from us, Karen sat ramrod straight in a cream suit that probably cost more than a month's feed bills. Her lawyer looked like he hadn't slept since the arrest, which suited me fine. The prosecutor laid it out. Exhibit 1, the forged maps, rolled out across the jury box, their red lines bleeding under the courtroom lights. Exhibit 2, printed emails and texts between Karen and her patrol, detailing everything from cutting my fence to photographing my barn. Exhibit 3, the intercepted camera feeds, verified authentic by the judge. The video of clipboard guy and lanky kid rehearsing their inspection got a laugh from the jury, a bad sign for the defense. When I took the stand, Dana had me walk through every incident, from the first envelope to the arrests. I kept it factual but didn't shy away from the absurd. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "The camel rental was my idea. Figured if they wanted an attraction, I'd give him something worth photographing." Even the judge cracked a smile. Karen's defense was a single note. Everything was a misunderstanding. The maps were conceptual drafts. The patrol was community outreach. The trespassing a miscommunication. But Dana saved her sharpest blade for last. She produced the revenue projections notebook, flipping to the page where Karen had listed my pond as a primary wedding venue, complete with an HOA share column. "Is this your handwriting, Mrs. Fitzgerald?" Dana asked. Karen hesitated, the room thick with tension. "It appears to be," she admitted. The verdict came fast. Guilty on trespassing, forgery, and attempted land fraud. Karen got 12 years. Her lieutenants got 5 each. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with a drill sergeant's posture, turned to me. "Mr. Rhodes, your civil suit for damages is granted. The HOA is to pay you $250,000 for emotional distress and attempted unlawful taking." The gallery gasped. I thanked the court, shook Dana's hand, and walked into the sunlight, feeling like I'd dropped a 100-pound saddle. That evening, I locked the compensation check in my safe and ordered custom steel gates for the ranch, thick as an oil rig's hull, with an electronic keypad and a camera feed wired to my phone. I mounted a sign above the entrance. "Private property. HOA trespassers will be treated as livestock rustlers." 2 months later, I drove past the Lakeside Preserve office. The parking lot was empty except for a faded sedan with a for sale sign. The HOA's polished sign was gone, leaving 2 bare posts like headstones for a failed empire. I snapped a photo and posted it to the community group with the caption, grand closing, no refunds. Laughing emojis rolled in like tumbleweeds. Back at the ranch, the camels were long gone, but I'd kept the safari sign in the barn. On slow afternoons, I'd hang it up to mess with delivery drivers. Every time I heard the keypad beep or glanced at those gates, I remembered why I'd fought. Out here, in this stretch of Texas dirt and sky, the line between what's yours and what's theirs isn't just on a map. It's written in steel, sweat, and the knowledge that if you let someone cross it once, they'll never stop.